So a lot to talk about, and with those strong storms coming to the eastern U.S., there is a marginal or level 1 threat of severe weather for Hampton Roads. Now, tomorrow, there's not the severe weather threat, but there is a greater threat, a level 2 threat for excessive rainfall or potential flash flooding. So tomorrow, Wednesday, between 11 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock in the evening, and especially during the late afternoon, that's going to be the greatest opportunity. I'd say between 3 and say 5 o'clock or 3 and 6, we have the potential for heavy rainfall and potentially excessive rainfall and flash flooding. So again, we'll remind you, turn around, don't drown for Hampton Roads. Some areas fill up very quickly. We've got some poor drainage areas. We're talking about underpasses that can fill up with water if you get a few inches, in short order, say a couple hours. We can have issues there with standing water, and we don't want folks trying to wade through flood water or certainly not drive through flood water. Again, it's just best to turn around, don't drown, don't mess with any potential flooding. We're going to be watching for that tomorrow. Let's talk about what's going on out there now. And you could see through early this morning some unsettled weather working across the Ohio River Valley. We've got some scattered wet weather for the Northeast. It's been pretty quiet here in the Mid-Atlantic. Actually, a lot of sunshine and temperatures not too bad. We were in the mid to upper 70s this morning, still really muggy. Down along the Gulf Coast, there's been some showers down around Florida, the Big Bend, and then some heavier rain now settling down south over the Gulf. You'll also notice some scattered wet weather back across Texas. Most of the western U.S. is dry. There have been a handful of showers out there, and it's pretty dry across the upper central part of the country. I would say from the upper Midwest back across the Great Plains and into Montana. We'll get into all of this and what's going to happen here over the next 24 to 48 hours. Let's start with the surface feature. The main thing we're tracking, this cold front that is sliding eastward. It's going to come in to this warm, humid air mass as we reach the heating this afternoon. So you combine humidity with the afternoon heating, temperatures very warm, that lends to instability. Then you get this cold front that comes plowing into this warm, humid air, and that's going to trigger some stronger storms potentially. Behind it, it's cooler and less humid. That's what this high pressure is bringing down those north winds, so it's much more comfortable in this part of the country. But out ahead of this front, this is the area we need to watch for, and this is the area that the Storm Prediction Center's really identified for potential strong to severe storms. It's a level 2 risk. You can see much of this region from New England all the way down through portions of northern Louisiana and southern Arkansas. This is all a slightly elevated risk, a level 1 or marginal risk, but it's this area shaded in yellow that is a slight risk or level 2. We also could see some stronger storms developing back across South Dakota and into Nebraska a little bit later on. Again, that high pressure sliding over a little bit, and we're getting a little more warmth kind of feeding up into this area as well. So let's take a closer look at this area because so many folks are impacted from New York City to Philadelphia. You think about this, Dover, Delaware, back down through Baltimore and D.C. and areas down just north of Richmond and out to the west. These are some major metropolitan areas that are going to be impacted with the potential strong to severe storms. You can see again, once you get north of New Jersey, the southernmost part of New York State, just out there to the west of the Big Apple, we've got that level 2 threat, but most of New England just under the level 1 or marginal threat. Still, we're going to be watching that. Now, when you get into the types of storms, or the types of impacts from these storms, primarily today, we are just looking at gusty winds. Again, that threat, that level 1 marginal threat all the way down through Atlanta and Raleigh, Charlotte, Jackson, down into Mississippi there. You can see Birmingham, these areas all bracing for potential stronger storms this afternoon. They'll be more isolated in that area, shaded in green, but the wind is the primary concern here. I was looking at the hail potential. We're not really seeing too much of that. The tornadic potential is pretty low as far as the general thunderstorms go. There could be, and we always watch, I can't stress enough, we always watch for any signs of rotation with any stronger storms. But the Storm Prediction Center believes wind will be the greatest threat with these storms. Out to the west, some wind, but also maybe some hail out here. We do have this slightly elevated area in here, kind of a level 2 from areas off to the northwest of North Platte in Nebraska up to Rapid City. So those areas from South Dakota into Nebraska, watching for potential hail. We're talking hail 1-inch diameter or greater. Now, I want to bring you back to the East Coast, and again, all of these metro areas, in addition to the potential for the strong to severe storms, we also have to watch for excessive rainfall. And you kind of get to that third level here, up around D.C., Baltimore, even up towards Philadelphia, getting up into that area. There will likely be some areas with some excessive rainfall, very heavy rain setting up. So that's something that we're going to be concerned with. For tomorrow, this area, the slight risk actually settles into Hampton Roads in northeast North Carolina. That's why we've declared the weather impact alert for tomorrow between 11 and 8. So we have that elevated risk, and you can see as we zoom in, I change up the color tables here a little bit just so you can see there is a possibility of excessive rainfall or flash flooding in this area, highlighted in the light green. You get into this darker green, and there it becomes more likely that we will see some issues with excessive rainfall. We're talking about areas out to the west like Rocky Mount and Roanoke Rapids, just kind of on the fringe and just outside of our viewing area, but certainly Emporia over to Franklin, Williamsburg down through Hampton, the south side Hampton Roads, northeast North Carolina, Elizabeth City, Edenton, even the Outer Banks, we could see this excessive rainfall. So that's why we have the weather impact alert. Now, I will tell you, the models here aren't going super crazy with the amounts, but the potential's there for some locally heavy downpours. This is the graph model, and it projects anywhere from 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and this is through Wednesday. So widespread, pretty significant rain. We'll see maybe some locally higher amounts. You see 1 to 2 down around Kill Level Hills. And underneath some of the cells, if we get one cell moving along followed by another, kind of a training effect where you get like multiple cells moving over the same location, kind of like train cars rolling down the track, you could get even heavier rain. So we take a look at some of the other models, and the NAM model produces about 0.8 inches. I will say the high-res NAM, what we call the NAM 3K model, is going for locally higher amounts, some areas over 2 to 3 inches of rain. The GFS, about 3/4 of an inch. That's the U.S. global model. The graph model I just showed you, 1/2 inch to 1 inch. The Canadian, or the GEM, 1.32 inches, and the Euro calling for about 0.8. In this case, that would be some significant rain, but it's going to be those locally heavier downpours that have the potential to produce the flash flooding. So we've got to watch that very carefully, and we will be doing that for you through the day. Now, we've talked about the severe weather that slammed parts of the country over the weekend. Now we're getting a closer look at some of the destruction. Take a look. This tornado touched down in Gary, South Dakota, near the Minnesota state line. It was one of several suspected twisters in that region in just a few hours. There haven't been any reports of injuries, but the storms did knock out power to thousands of residents. Really, really something to see there. All right, I wanted to share that with you. As we turn our attention out to the west, you can see what's going on. We've got warm and dry conditions, and that combination of dry conditions, warmer air, low humidity, and some gusty winds has prompted red flag warnings and burn restrictions for parts of Utah, back down into northwest Arizona, southern and central portions of Nevada, northern California, even up into Oregon. So this is a concern. You know, that heat, it is the grips on so much of the country for us here in the east, and now we're seeing some warmer weather out to the west. Well, guess what? Over in Europe, they are still dealing with a heat wave, and the extreme temperatures are fueling wildfires around the world. So we're going to start off in California, where the wildfires now scorched more than 2,000 acres in Riverside County near Los Angeles. This is one of several wildfires crews are battling right now. It's about 30% contain. Now we'll take you over to Turkey, where thousands have been forced to leave their homes due to the wildfires. Strong winds and heat have made it hard for crews to contain the flames. Finally, evacuations are also underway in southwestern France after wildfires sparked over the weekend. This video shows smoke engulfing a highway. Right now, France is dealing with temperatures 100 degrees and higher. The heat has forced schools in parts of the country, including Paris, to shut down. All right, so we're taking a look at the tropics now, and I mentioned couple things we're watching. There's Flossie, and I'll update you on that in the Eastern Pacific. But here in the Atlantic, things have been fairly quiet so far. We have kind of the remnants of what was Barry, still producing some wet weather back across Mexico, at least some of the moisture back that way. Most of the Gulf is quiet. The Caribbean looks pretty good as well right now. Not too much, a little bit in the southern part of the Caribbean. Most of the main development region also very quiet. We've got some clouds kind of rolling along with the intertropical convergence zone there. But as we take a closer look here just off the southeast coast, you see this area that's kind of elongated here. The Hurricane Center is looking for this, maybe a 20% chance of development. So here's Florida. You see Georgia here, South Carolina, North Carolina, and this area over the coming week with this 20% chance for development. This is where our cold front that is going to come through our area, it is going to settle down to the south and it's going to erode. As it kind of decays, sometimes we can get just enough of a low-level spin with warm sea surface temperatures to spin up something. And that is the concern, that we could see something developing maybe here on the Gulf side, possibly a little farther to the east out over the ocean, with this frontal boundary settling to the south and then kind of eroding or decaying. The models don't go crazy. It's not like, oh, you know, this global model or that global model spinning something up. But I will say, looking at the GFS, you can at least see a little enhancement here over the northeast Gulf, kind of moving up towards Florida. So it's something we're going to watch. Probably a heavy rainmaker, if nothing else, for parts of Florida and into the southeast U.S. But it is something that we want to pay close attention to. Now, I want to take you a quick look at the next name on the list is Chantal. And again, we don't have anything out there right now suggesting that it's imminent to develop, but just to give you that heads up, that's the next one on the list here in the Atlantic. This is Flossie. So we're up to Flossie on the names, and all of the names in the Eastern Pacific have all kind of formed in the same general area. Right now, as of the 8 a.m. advisory, Flossie has winds of 90 miles per hour, forecast to become a Category 2 hurricane. It will then move off to the northwest and eventually weaken as it moves over some cooler water here and it loses some of its organization to a remnant low. It is at this point expected to stay west of the Baja Peninsula, but we're certainly going to keep a close eye to it as some additional strengthening, maybe reaching winds of 110 miles per hour. It's a possibility. So this is something that we will continue to monitor. And beyond that, we have, here's Flossie, there could be another system that develops out here. So we're watching a lot. I mean, you just get one right after the other, south of the Mexican coast. And again, it's a few hundred miles south. But this is still a really hot zone. Now, we're officially 1 month into the Atlantic hurricane season. And it's been a little bit longer than that we've had the activity in the Pacific. But so far, we've only had a handful of named storms, certainly just the two, Andrea and Barry, in the Atlantic. It is so important that we continue to keep a close eye on all of the development. And when a hurricane is expected to make landfall, forecasters rely on that important data gathered by pilots who fly right into the storms. Meteorologist Hunter Forrest explains how Hurricane Hunter planes work and the impact they have when tracking hurricanes.
NOAA flies two specially equipped WP-3D Orion aircraft called Kermit and Miss Piggy directly into hurricanes. These planes endure strong winds, heavy rain, and turbulence as they pass through the storm's eye wall and into the calm eye. Scientists on board released GPS dropsondes that collect real-time data on pressure, temperature, humidity, and wind as they fall through the storm. This helps create a detailed picture of the hurricane's structure and strength. The aircraft also uses two advanced radar systems, the lower fuselage radar and the tail Doppler radar, providing 3D scans of the storm's wind and rain patterns. To understand the ocean's role in fueling storms, the planes measure sea surface temperatures. They also use stepped frequency microwave radiometer, or SFMR, to track wind speeds and rain over the ocean's surface. In addition to research, NOAA's P3S assists the National Hurricane Center by flying reconnaissance missions. They help pinpoint the storm's center and measure central pressure and wind speeds, improving forecasts and giving coastal communities more accurate warnings. Beyond hurricanes, these aircraft support a variety of weather research projects worldwide, from studying winter storms to investigating climate phenomena like El Nino. NOAA's hurricane hunters play a vital role in protecting lives and improving our understanding of severe weather through the daring and detailed missions. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Hunter Forst.
That data gathered by the hurricane hunters is extremely important, and especially since forecasters are soon going to lose a critical resource used to track storms. Here are three things you need to know. Starting July 31st, NOAA says it will no longer have access to three key weather satellites. The satellites, which are part of the Special Sensor Microwave Imagery Sounder, are maintained by NOAA in partnership with the Department of Defense. The DoD says the satellites are being decommissioned because they don't meet modernization requirements, and that can pose cybersecurity risk. However, critics of the move say those satellites provided unique views of the storm structure beneath the general cloud cover, and that is absolutely vital to forecasting storms. We're going to be watching that closely, and again, there'll be more ways that we can get information, but for right now, with the DoD taking those three satellites down, forecasters will be working to stay ahead of these storms as they develop. Now, you know, some states are still recovering from Helene last year. It's just such a tough road to go. Lawmakers in North Carolina recently approved millions in relief for communities slammed by Hurricane Helene back in September of 2024. Josie Frost from our sister station in Charlotte reports from North Carolina State Capitol.
The federal government is sending $150 million to be used in counties that were hit hardest by Hurricane Helene, but that still leaves several counties out. That's where the state funding steps in, targeting areas that suffered damages from the hurricane but didn't receive federal funding.
And that's just when we've seen the gallons and gallons of water coming down the fireplace. There was nothing that you could do. No buckets, no towels, no nothing.
Deanna George says her home in Saluda was flooded from Helene's storms. They're still working to tear up her floors and walls to fix the water damage and mold.
It'll get to a point, if it's too bad, if we can't get it fixed, that they'll end up tearing it down.
Orangeburg and Saluda are two counties in the Midlands eligible for a small portion of the $150 million in federal funding, while most of it has to be spent in the upstate. But the state also set aside $40 million for all the other counties impacted that aren't eligible for federal dollars. Ran Reinhard is with the South Carolina Office of Resilience.
But you might know somebody that was impacted by the hurricane that didn't apply to FEMA for assistance, is in that low to moderate income community. You know, they might be old and elderly. They may not trust the government. Have them apply.
They're hoping to target those making less than 30% of the median income in their county, the elderly, and those with children.
Worst we could do is say no. But if they're low to moderate income and they're elderly and maybe disabled, it is very likely they're exactly the person we're looking for.
The state funding will be available when the budget goes into effect tomorrow. But applications for the federal funding won't open until the state finalizes its action plan. Reporting at State House, Josie Frost, News 19, WLTX.
All right, Josie, thank you for that report. Again, we have a network of stations throughout Tegna, and we do rely on them to give us some insights to some of their local stories. And again, so many folks here in the Mid-Atlantic, our hearts going out to the folks in Asheville and all across North Carolina, but especially some of that extensive flooding in the western parts of North Carolina last year. All right, we're going to take you from the tropical Atlantic basin here closer to the U.S. across the pond over to Portugal. All right, beachgoers in Europe treated to a pretty cool sight over the weekend. Check it out. It was on Sunday, parts of northern and central Portugal got to witness what we refer to as a roll cloud. Isn't that cool? That looks like something that shows up in the social media feed and people say, oh my gosh, it's like this monster rolling in off the ocean. No, in order for that tubular cloud to form, you need very specific wind conditions, temperature, and the humidity. It all needs to be right. And it typically happens near the water where the warmer air meets the cooler air along the coast. But that was really cool to see, and we thought you might enjoy checking that out. All right, let's go ahead and bring it back here to Hampton Roads and how things are going to be shaping up. You can see how warm it has been. We've had these hot conditions. Really, the pattern flipped on Wednesday the 18th. We had a couple cool days in there, but generally, we have seen temperatures above average for almost the last 2 weeks, and we had mid-90s for several days, upper 90s last Thursday. We were back to the mid-90s yesterday. As we take a look ahead today, we'll be up around 95 again. Lots of heat, lots of sunshine today. Remember, there is a chance for some storms later this evening. We'll get into the futurecast and here with the actual clouds and kind of forecasted or futurecast radar imagery coming up here in just a moment. But I do want to show you what it's going to feel like based on our modeling. And it does look like temperatures, once again, will feel like it's above 100 degrees for a few hours this afternoon. So up around 101, 102. That's below heat advisory criteria, but it's really hot. And again, if you're going to be out doing anything strenuous this afternoon, take breaks, keep yourself well hydrated. We're going to be a little cooler tomorrow, upper 80s, back close to 90 as we run through Thursday and the upcoming weekend. But the one thing you don't see here, it's going to be drier. Our dew points are going to start to come back down after that front passes. So we'll deal with scattered wet weather tomorrow, potential for some heavy rain. And then behind that front, even though the temperatures are going to stay pretty close to 90 and our normal high is now 89, we'll be a little bit above that, but the lower humidity is going to make all the difference. It's going to be really nice. Out at the ocean front, if you look, you see all these little black dots out there in the water. Those are all surfers there off in the distance trying to catch a few waves. We've got a southwest wind cleaning up the wave faces there, the wave heights. Expected to run about 3 feet or so, and it looks like some folks out there trying to catch a few coming in this morning. So it's a good look. Lots of sunshine right now. Beautiful beach weather. 83 winds are south-southwest at 16 miles per hour. That dew point 74. Now along Maryland's eastern shore, you head up to the Jersey shore, you've got a moderate risk of rip currents along Long Island. It's a high risk of rip currents. Here in Virginia Beach, down through the Outer Banks, it's a moderate risk of rip currents. And then once you get down towards Ocracoke, it becomes a high risk once again. So from Buxton through Ocracoke, a high risk of rip currents down that way. Our beach forecast today, moderate threat, as I mentioned, UV index very high. You just saw the sun shining down at the beach. So a lot of sunshine, and the water temperature right now at 78. Surf height about 3 feet. Marine forecast, well, it's going to get a little breezy out there, and small craft advisories are up for waters east of Virginia Beach and on the Chesapeake Bay, lower part of the bay. Check out the water temperatures. I mentioned 78 for our coastal waters around Virginia Beach, but you get up into the bay and it's in the low 80s. So it's really feeling warm out there in the water. Here's a look at the satellite and the radar images. Not much going on right now across the region. As we get into the afternoon, we're going to turn our attention to the northwest. There could be a few showers popping up. More activity with showers and thunderstorms later this afternoon. And then by mid to late evening, I think some of that wet weather starts working down the peninsula, middle peninsula, over across the bay into the eastern shore. You'll notice most of the south side and northeast North Carolina still basically dry. There is a chance we could see a few showers or storms during the evening, but the better chance is north and west. As we get into the day tomorrow, some more scattered wet weather. weather, some heavier rain potentially with some of these cells. That's why we have that level 2 threat for excessive rainfall, and our weather impact alert will be watching for any signs of excessive rainfall or flash flooding. Once that clears, I think our Thursday is looking really good. Mostly sunny skies, just a low risk of a stray shower down to the south. I think we'll be in good shape. Highs today, low to mid 90s. Plenty of sunshine across the region. We'll see low to mid 90s on the peninsula, middle peninsula over to the eastern shore. Upper 80s to near 90 at the Outer Banks, and low to mid 90s for inland parts of North Carolina. Tonight's low down around 79. Muggy and warm spotty storms tomorrow, back up to 88. So cooler, scattered storms more likely, some with heavy rain. And again, we will have that weather impact alert for the day, especially like midday through early evening for tomorrow. Looking ahead to the 4th, I think it's going to be fabulous here in Hampton Roads. I'll get to the specific fireworks forecast coming up in just a minute. Travel forecast for the 4th looking good up and down the East Coast. Orlando could see those storms during the afternoon. I think we could also see a few storms, maybe Oklahoma City or Omaha, but from Minneapolis through Chicago, St. Louis, Little Rock, Houston and Dallas, it's looking pretty good right now. Things also looking good for the southwest U.S. Maybe a little unsettled weather up in Montana around Billings, but much of the west should be just fine for the 4th. Now for Hampton Roads and the fireworks forecast Friday night. There's a lot of displays across the region. One of the big ones, Town Point Park. In Norfolk, between 9 and 10, I expect mainly clear skies, low 80s and east winds at 5 miles per hour. Doesn't get much better than that for fireworks here in Hampton Roads on the 4th of July. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the 7-day forecast. The weather impact alert for tomorrow afternoon through early evening. After that, mostly sunny on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Sunshine looking good with highs near 90 for the 4th and 5th of July. Looking ahead to next week, temperatures start to go back up, so it will get a little bit warmer. Want to remind you, you can always stay in touch with our forecast. When you're on the go, just scan this QR code right there. You'll have the latest news, traffic, and weather on the go with the 13 News Now app. There it is. Take that radar access and get important weather updates and breaking news updates. It's free on the App Store and Google Play. Thanks so much for joining us for this Tuesday edition of the Weather Desk. Again, I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. Hope you have a great day. Stay warm, or stay cool, I should say, in all this heat still on the East Coast. And if you're here on the East Coast and along the Mid-Atlantic, stay weather aware with that chance for storms later today and tonight.